You guys having fun so far tonight? Yeah, good time? First of all, give it up for everybody that you saw tonight. Brother Kamal Smith, Images of Identity, Johnny Walker, man, it's hot. Firstly, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I myself feel blessed just to be here with you guys. This is something that a lot of you don't know, but about 5 years ago, I survived a bout with a rare form of cancer. So honestly, I feel lucky just to be alive and be here with you guys. Yeah, her name is Stacy. She's a Cancer, I'm a Gemini. I don't know if you guys are dating out here or whatever, but check the stars first, you know what I'm saying? That woman almost killed me. It's all good though, my hair is growing back. I'm in remission. It feels good. I am so bad. At least get him out of here. Yeah, man, so I don't know if you guys see the shirt here. I am Black Pedro. For those who don't know me, you might be trying to Google right now, like, what the fuck is a Black Pedro? Put your phone away, all right? I'm here. I'll explain. You know, I realize that, you know, it's not you. It's me. I often confuse people when they meet me. Like, just upon introduction, right? Like, I'll walk up to you and be like, hi, my name is Pedro. And they'll be like, Pedro? I'm like, yeah, but without the question mark. Who spells their name? Then it's always like, well, you don't look like a Pedro. I'm like, well, what you want me to do? Walk around with a donkey and a poncho? I got shit to do. But you know, it's like, you know, we try not to be prejudiced in this world, right? It's 2013, like, let's get beyond that, you know? Look past my homeless beard and see the man. But I understand, like, we all do it, right? Like, we're all a little bit prejudiced, right? Sometimes you could be prejudiced and you could be right. Like, if a man walked in here right now, butt naked with a bucket of butter on his head, I'd be like, hey, I think he's crazy. But most of the time when you're prejudiced, you're wrong. Like one time I walked around, I twisted my ankle severely, right? I was walking around with a severe limp for like a month. I didn't realize it would bring this out in everybody, but when people saw me limping, they'd all ask the same question, they'd all make the same assumption. Hey man, what happened to your leg? Playing ball. Like I had on a jersey or a uniform. I am 5'9", 160 pounds. What ball do you think I play? Bocce? Foos? No asshole, I didn't twist my ankle playing ball. Just tripped chasing this white girl I was trying to rape. She got away. It's a bad day. Some of you ladies look a little concerned. I'm joking, ladies. Lighten up, all right? But I never let them get away. I face a lot of prejudice, man. It happens. It goes down like that. Like I graduated from Princeton University. See, prejudice. Nobody's happy for me. Everybody's waiting for the joke. Do you get it? I don't get it. A man once told me that I went to Princeton in a magical time called the 90s. Gather around, kids, gather around. Tell you a story. I once had a man tell me that the only reason I got into Princeton was because of affirmative action. Which is obviously bullshit, right? My name is Pedro Delfino Hernandez. I'm a black man with a full Spanish name. Give me my credit. I was obviously filling at least 2 quotas. Maybe 3, right? Black, Hispanic, other. I think when people state the obvious, though, right? Like, of course I was filling a quota in college. Everybody's filling the quota in college. They need some of everything, right? Some rich, some black, some white, some poor. All that. Mostly Asian. So I'm like, yeah, you know, we're all filling. That's admissions officers, that's their job, is to fill quota. And I know it's true at Princeton because they actually ask you to send in a picture of yourself with your application. So, you know, they knew what they were getting with. You know, it's like, at that point, once you ask for a picture with the application, it's like, you know, filling quotas is like a game. It's like fun at that point, right? Like, I can see the admissions officer sitting around one day, like, playing a hand of racial poker or something like that, you know what I mean? One guy sitting there, he's like, I'm out, man, I'm out. No, I got nothing, man. I got 2 women and an Asian. I'm out. The guy next to him was like, today's not your day, is it, Tej? I'll see your Asian and raise you 2 Pacific Islanders, thank you very much. And he goes to collect all the chips, and that's when the guy who got my application is like, not so fast. Read them and weep, boys. I got a brother who's the other with a Latino mother. Full house, bitches, full house. If I had Native American in me, that'd be a royal flush. That's how you do it. But you know, it's not just like white people who judge me for going to Princeton. Like, I went to Cass Tech right around the corner, man. You know, graduating or whatever, girls, you know, Pedro, what school are you going to? Like Princeton University, you know what I'm saying? And it was always like the same reaction, right? It would start off so good, you know, they'd be like, oh my God. I knew you could do it, boy. You go to Princeton, you rule this world, boy, you go. But you better not get no white girl, I will cut you. Every time, you know what I mean? And after a while, it becomes offensive, you know what I mean? I'm like, we went to school for 4 years. You gonna say this to me? Obviously, you don't know me. You don't understand who I am. The fuck you think I applied to Princeton for? Architecture? I could go to DeVry and learn AutoCAD. You go to Princeton for the white girls. It's not like they're so pretty or they look good or anything, but they just have last names like Forbes and Firestone and Smothers, you know. Let's spread that jam over here, bitch. I bring you biscuits. So it's like, what do we do with all this prejudice, this judgment, right? Like, how do we get rid of this? My solution? Everybody needs to smoke more weed. That's where I'm coming from, right? I'm sorry. I think it's the solution. I dabble in the weed, man. I do. And you know, I think it makes me a better thinker. I think deeper when I'm out there. Like the other day, I had the most profound thought in my life. Changed my life. The other day I smoked half a blunt, put it out, and I realized that a soft taco is just a burrito that can't get his shit together. And I don't want to be a soft taco. Changed my life. realized that life is like a fart. If you push hard enough, you can make shit happen. Change my pants. But seriously, like, what is the point of all this, right? You know, what do you, girls, everybody's looking at me, Black Pedro, what's your point? The point is 2013, let's stop judging each other for what we see on the outside, right? Like, let's see people for people. I don't think, have sex with me after the show. She said, okay. That's my time, boys. No, seriously, so here's why I don't judge people anymore. Recently, I got on an airplane, and I was seated next to a black man who spoke English, Spanish, and German, right? Fluently. Then there was a male flight attendant on the plane who was German, but black. So now I'm sitting here next to two black men speaking German to each other, and it scared the shit out of me. I turned into Scooby-Doo like, oh. But it was such a beautiful moment, and once I calmed down and realized what was happening, I was like, wow. No matter who you are, or the color of your skin, or where you come from, it doesn't matter. All male flight attendants are gay as hell. Guys, I'm Black Pedro.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to show you some shit.
You're late?
I'm pregnant?
You're late. So you've been drinking?
Since freshman year.
Your jokes sound funny.
Sound like my manager.
Wouldn't it be cool if you knew when to apologize? The all-new apology alert from the female navigation device. It goes off before she does.
You're late?
I'm sorry.
What's that here?
You want some?
I love you.
I love you. You too. Be a better man with the female navigation device.
So this is how we do it in the hood, man. You know, we have our own convenience store. Ain't too convenient though. If you look here, see some of our options, or lack thereof. We got beef juicy right here, but as I check the label, contains no juice. Okay, how's it gonna be big juicy and contain no juice? Sunny D, you know what I'm saying? Purple stuff, red, green. I don't even know what color that is. Really, it's like a ball or something. That's what I love, right? You know what I'm saying? This is what they trying to tell us. That clear drink, you gotta be fine. Contains no water. Okay, I didn't get wet. They expect us to drink this every day. It's good. I love the way it tastes. Forget it, man.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. that is the show for the evening. We do thank you guys for coming out so much. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
But so now that the show's over, we would like to address you guys and field any questions.
If you were offended at all by
Yeah,
anything,
no.
we'd like to talk about that. And part of what we want to do is spark discussions. Or if you have a compliment,
Yeah.
that'd be fun. Or if you just want to talk about something, we can do that here. We can be like, I think 2 men together can equal Oprah.
Yeah.
Or half an Oprah.
At least.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes.
I think you're both quite talented and big fun.
Thank you so much. Was anyone offended by anything?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you meant for us to be uncomfortable or not, because when you were saying the Rich and White song, and when you were saying about chasing the white women, I felt uncomfortable. I don't know how you would be able to say it. That's how,
Yeah.
So I don't know if you meant for us to be uncomfortable or not uncomfortable.
Or was there something specific that made you were uncomfortable by the?
The Rich White song, she said, and my chasing white girls when I was pregnant or whatever.
I mean, those are the prejudices we hold in our
Definitely.
stereotypes that we hold in our head. But hearing from you yourself, a white person and a black man talking about it, definitely made me uncomfortable hearing it from
Yeah.
your
Why is
own. I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean,
this
that's the stereotype we hold in our society.
This is why or at least, for both of us, I think we like to explore comedy or things in life that make us uncomfortable. And so trying to explore it and trying to voice it is a way of us to understand it better. And then reflect it off people and see how they respond to it. So a lot of it's an experiment.
Yeah, and honestly, you just can't. I mean, when you're up here performing, you just can't be afraid to do stuff like that. I mean, this is a real world, and like you said, these are stereotypes that exist. So, if I say them out loud and I'm bringing them up, I'm trying to get you to think about it and not be uncomfortable. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. No, I want you to laugh, right? But then after you're done laughing, I want you to think. You know what I mean? Think about what you heard and why it made you uncomfortable, or why you're laughing at it, or why it is a true stereotype, or is not a true stereotype. You know what I mean? And I think that's our mission, is to make people really think about it.
But it's also the stereotype of being rich and white and being out of touch is true. And it's something that I experienced too. And it's something I've been trying to, or until you, like people, or at least I grew up not seeing outside of a very, very sheltered bubble that I lived in. Like I said, like really like the radio, places like that, television were the only places that I was exposed to the other in any way, and that's such a produced medium anyway. So I can make fun of the way that I was back then and how blissfully ignorant I was about who I was and my relation to the world. So I try to do that because I don't think there's anything wrong with it if my ignorance is not based on hate. If it's just simple ignorance, then if I'm able to admit it and own it and say that I want to get beyond it, then that's something that I think a lot of people can learn and accept and have that conversation. It's based in a willingness to communicate.
My question is, I would assume that basically you probably performed before liberal audiences, but have you performed in front of conservative audiences? Excuse me, if so, what's the reaction?
Well, just as individual comedians, we've been all over the world and in all over this country, and you'll end up, seeing a bit of everybody. So yeah, like Middle America gets a little scary sometimes. Black Pedro rubs them the wrong way. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's just part of this job, and honestly, part of our mission. Like I don't change my material for anybody. I'm gonna say what I say. Everything I say comes from a good place and is intended to make you laugh and think at the same time. So, conservative audiences can be a little bit tougher, but that's not something that ever stops us from doing what we do.
Also, the cool thing with comedy crowds is they approach it in an open-minded way, not always open-minded, but at least open to laugh. They're there to have a good time. They're not, for the most part. Yeah, I mean, I've been chased off the stage. Usually the politics stuff, only intelligent crowds get it. So, it's people that are like, I don't know what he's talking about, but I don't understand, and that makes me angry. So I get that, but I found at least the conservative stuff is usually when I talk about, I didn't do it tonight really about sex. That's when people get the most offended, which is so crazy because that's another part of life that everyone has to deal with. I like to look at like things that are that people conceive as being ugly, and then look at it and dissect it because I think we all share ugliness, and I think it's some of the most intimate things we think of as ugly, and that's worth exploring and looking at. But yeah, I've been booed off stage and chased off stage before. It sucks.
Well, my name is Nunzo Gazi from South Africa. I just say bravo to you guys.
Thank you.
Because we came to this country in exile in the early 60s, and really, actually, my husband came before me, and he wrote me a card saying that, we thought South Africa was the most racist because apartheid was enshrined in the constitution of the land. But let me tell you this, when those 3 civil rights there in Memphis were killed, my husband was in that conference, and he said, America is a dream to you. It's not as free as we thought it was. Yes. Now I'm saying bravo to you because here are you guys, black and white, working together, and we tried to do this in South Africa, but we couldn't do it. We were locked down for it, we were beaten up for it, we were killed for it. So I'm saying bravo to you guys. God answers prayers. Looking forward to you.
Thank you, sweetheart. And I am Malcolm X, okay?
Hi, could you guys tell us what do your families think about what you're doing? I heard you guys on the radio, and I heard Mr. Walker's comment on the radio, but what about you, Black Pedro?
My mother is here tonight, and she was waiting for that all night. Well, you better give me my credit, bro. See you at home. But my mother worked at General Motors for 33 years. She was
33.6.
She still drinks. She's like, you gonna get a whooping with me. I'll whoop you right now. But yeah, 33.6 years at General Motors. She's the first female skills trades mechanic to work for the Cadillac Motor Company. But that's just what she did. At the same time, while raising myself and my little sister, she was a writer. She was always a writer. So she was always doing that, always. And my mother is now a PEN Award published writer. Has another collection coming out. So with that being said, she has always been supportive of me. Maybe to a fault. Like there's some days where I wish she'd just told me to be a doctor because I'm so damn hungry. But no, I appreciated that support, and big up to that Cass Tech hoodie. I was on the first Cass Tech team to ever win a city championship. 1994. I don't know why I said that.
Oh, my parents. They're both lawyers, and but they're supportive in a way that In a way that my mom used to always say, you can always go to law school. And I wouldn't tell her in moments of weakness I'd buy LSAT books and then throw them out the next day. I think for a year I bought like 4 or 5 different LSAT books. And then my dad was like, well, I support you, but I have no advice for you because your career is completely foreign to me. So that's supportive. Yeah, I mean, I have a legacy of 5 generations of male Yale graduates who went into the military and law. And so I feel like I am evolution. But honestly, they're very supportive. They are. I think they're mostly, as parents, they're just worried for their child. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. I mean, my dad, I've done these, very political, like music CDs, and my dad proudly hands them out to friends and strangers who are like, what the hell is this? But I think mostly they're just worried about a son getting into a field that has no security at all, and you're putting yourself out there constantly. But in other respects, they're incredibly supportive, and it's been so necessary too.
Just real quick, how did the two of you meet and even start this relationship?
They were at the Hollywood Improv. It's a club in Hollywood. We performed. They had an Ivy League comedy night, which sounds really unfunny, and it was disbanded. But that's where we met, and we just had a connection, and then I don't know. We started shooting some videos together, and then we just found like comedy videos, and we've known each other. We've like grown up as comedians together and as men together. Like I have a family now, and like it's cool to. I mean, it's we've performed in clubs. We performed at like. Remember that school in Indiana we performed in? That was just like frightening. The biggest rednecks in the world coming to Indiana. But I mean, it's we started off and just meeting each other at a comedy show and became friends, and just sort of kept up a friendship and professional relationship.
Do you think that is it possible to talk about race without including religion and classism?
I think classism is different. No, I mean, I think, all three are very closely tied. For me, though, definitely classism is where race and those two intersect or intertwine sort of all day long. Honestly, I believe that race is a smokescreen for classism, right? Like, the reality is that they teach these poor white people that hate us hate black people just for being black, when really we're in the same boat. Like, Mitt Romney cares as much about you and I as he does about some farmer in Indiana. So that when we get into these racial arguments and disagreements, they're really just distractions from what's really going on. Our government doesn't want to pass a budget right now, and they don't think about that. So they rather you pick on Michael Vick or do whatever else is going on in the news to keep you distracted.
Yeah, and just in the lens of history, it's hard to separate because history is a heavy thing with all these intersecting, where religion and race and all economics are all tied together, and it's hard to sort of parse it out. But it's just worth having a discussion about. It's like life. It's like nothing is simple or concrete, but it's all connected, and so. It's evolving still. I really hate the phrase post-racial, that we live in a post-racial country. It's ridiculous. I am like, I don't know if I said this on stage, but my daughter, I have a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old, and they're growing up in a country where they do have a president who doesn't look like me, In California, we have 2 senators who don't look like me. They're women. Their doctor doesn't look like me. Their dentist, Dr. Wang, doesn't look like me. And so that I see as just, that is progress. But at the same time, I think everything's tied to the political. For example, like, and that only happened because of policies and progressive policies that were put into action in the 60s and the 70s, things that have been taken away and really eroded recently. And so, I don't know. It's all tied together, I think, and it's great to be having dialogues about it.
What is it about comedy that makes talking about race easier? Or do you think it makes it easier?
Laughter is cathartic, right? Like, it just makes you feel better, and it's a natural response. It's not something that you can generally control, right? So you're just laughing because you're genuinely reacting to this thing. So, I think, what is it about it? I think it's just that the act of making somebody laugh, of changing their state of being about something, like if I bring up the topic of race, you might get tense at first, but by that punchline you're laughing, and now I've relieved that tension and broken that ice. So, it's just the laughter itself. I think it allows you to be freer, and be in a freer state of mind.
And I think that it applies to all art in general. Like, I think, speaking of art, is a safe place for expression. A stage is a safe place. The walls of a gallery are a safe place. Sometimes the walls of a city street are a safe place to say something about race, or to say something about politics. And so I think any artistic venue or writing is a great place to express yourself and to introduce and dissect ideas.
I also think that comedians, we have the opportunity to get to the root of an issue or a problem in a way that makes it easier to talk about something, like getting to the truth and finding that universal note that hits with everybody, I think is what allows it to be easier as well.
What comedians have you been influenced by? And are you familiar with Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles?
All day. The sheriff said, no. It's here. My biggest influence is Eddie Murphy was my favorite, but I always say Richard Pryor was the best. It's just a generational thing for me. Like, my mother had to sneak in the basement to listen to Richard, and I had to sneak in the basement to watch Eddie. Also, guys like Martin Lawrence, David Chappelle, George Carlin. Okay, we got George Carlin Jr. in the house. Even some newer guys like Louis C.K. Or Bill Burr are guys that white, black is what funny is funny to me. So that's what I think.
Yeah, a lot of the same comedians for me. Chris Rock is a big one, and Bill Maher. I like, it really doesn't matter, it matters what they're talking about, but I like comedians or artists who have a very unique point of view, who only that person can say it. And I think when you're an artist and you're developing yourself, you look to get to that point where you have a unique voice. And so I love watching people in any artistic medium who you can hear a joke, or you can see a painting, or hear a song and be like, oh, that's that guy. Or like, oh, that's definitely Miles Davis when you listen to that. Like, that. If you see a Kandinsky, that's Kandinsky. A joke, that's George Carlin. So I like hearing people who have found their voice. That's very inspiring to me. Because it's sort of, I think the great power that you can get from being an artist is finding your true voice and being able to communicate it. That's what's so exciting about being a comedian for me. Yeah. You have to run. You're good. We get this done now.
Thanks. First of all, not all rednecks are from Indiana.
Okay.
Some of them are Ohio. You know, I think that racial stereotypes or stereotypes in general can be such an easy laugh for some comedians. Is there a line that gets crossed sometimes, and I'm thinking also in gender stereotypes, and where that becomes destructive? And what do you do about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a line, like if you think a few years back about Michael Richards, Kramer from Seinfeld. I mean, he had an episode, he's yelling N-word on stage at the Laugh Factory. He obviously crossed over a line. But realistically, in my opinion, I think that's for the audience to decide. I mean, I tell a joke, if you laugh, then it's a good joke. And if you don't laugh, then it's not a good joke. And that's that you guys determine a lot of what we do and how we shape our stuff. It's like, and once you go around enough places and you test and get enough laughs, and you realize, okay, this is universally funny, or it's not. And so I think it's, the audience has as much say in what is acceptable and what isn't.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the ugly things that we have to accept in a democracy where we have the First Amendment, where people can say horrible, hateful things, but it's a protected speech. And they'll say it to their crowd. I'm not going to listen, but it's their right. Because on the other side of the coin, you have people like Lenny Bruce or George Carlin who couldn't, swear in public. So I'm for openness, I think, is the best medicine. Openness of ideas, no matter how repugnant they are. I mean, if someone exposes themselves for being hateful, they've exposed themselves for being hateful, and that's almost a good thing. Like you were talking about earlier today, like the Tea Party is a great thing because we see who all the hateful people are. They're out of the woodwork proudly waving their snake flags. And it's like, okay, I know who you are. Yeah.
I think that's useful in our society. It's like we were up at the Ann Arbor campus talking with some students, and Johnny actually related a story to them about how when he was in middle school, he said something racist in front of a friend who he didn't realize it would offend. Did you want to tell?
Yeah, sure. All right. Basically, I think, especially if you're not all racist people want to be racist.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's just how they were raised. And I'm not defending. Well, yeah. Whatever. I'll just tell the story. That is the fact, and I know that because of my own experience. I remember being in third grade and watching a video about Iran. And my dad had told me earlier. He said something like, "Oh, the Shiites are animals." And the video about Iran came on, and they said something about the Shiites. And I said, "Oh, the Shiites are animals." And the hottest girl in the class says, "I'm a Shiite." And I was like, I love Shiites. And right there, if I hadn't have said that racist, insensitive thing, and if she wasn't strong enough and bold enough to say that matter-of-factly, because she knew I had a crush on her and she had a crush on me, it was awesome. That wiped away that idea in a hurry. So, it's my plug for saying what's on your mind, even if it's racist.
You mentioned earlier about how we are over past racism.
Oh, so we're not.
Right, but how people say that we are.
Yeah.
Okay. So my generation, I think, is a lot more open-minded to these issues than previous generations have been. My brother is 19 and he's been dating a black girl for 4 years. It's perfectly fine. But my grandparents have an issue with that. How are we in our generation supposed to combat that while also respecting our elders?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And something I'm really proud of is the last commercial is the female navigation device was Pedro and my sister as a couple. And my grandfather was so racist that if he saw two black people in a commercial, he would get upset. That's how racist he was. It was like NyQuil, and this was called, they were in the same bed together, and how dare, he stormed out of the room. And I wanted to come up with an excuse like, oh, it's because he and grandma sleep in separate beds, and there's like the same bed, so it couldn't be anything. But it was because there were two black people in the same bed. And I have the same. It's really hard. I tiptoe around the race thing with my grandparents, but I tell them what I'm doing.
I mean, we need
And
to
I tell
stand
them-
up. We need to stand up to them and say that this is wrong, but we're taught to respect our elders.
Oh, I don't say that they're wrong. I mean, I say that they're wrong and they're crazy. It's such a common. The greatest generation is also the racist, the greatest racist generation. And and you get into arguments and you yell with them. Right now, when my wife's grandma, her big thing is the Mexicans because we live in California, and she started. Well, they just don't. And she's parroting some shit she's heard somewhere else. It's not because she knows anybody. And then she listens to some radio station that tells her how to think and what opinions to have. And we're like, that's enough. That is enough. She knows that we have friends. Like my daughter's middle name is Fiore because we're like family with this Argentine family, and it's just like we're not going to change anything about our lives. But yelling at old people, and she hasn't changed. Like we yell at them, but they're not going to change. It's like you and your phones, you and your black friends, you and your it's like it's part of just a general. And so I try not to judge it as much anymore, and I just live my life differently than how they would have me live it. But it sucks, and it's really tough.
I agree that you should disagree with your grandparents, but there's a way you can do it respectfully and just express your opinion, and then afterwards like, hey grandma, I don't really want to hear that, and they might not want to hear it like that or whatever, but you got to stand up, get your opinion out there, and I agree that this next generation is different. You know what I mean? You guys think differently and interact differently. Which doesn't mean there's nobody racist in your generation. It's just, I think the majority is starting to change.
How do you approach your grandmother now?
My grandmother is a very Christian woman, okay? She lives that way. The older she gets, the more honor she gets. And when my brother started dating his girlfriend, she told my brother he was going to hell.
Well, you can't talk about race without religion.
So there for a while, there was not much interaction that went on because my mother and brother and I were so offended. But now I basically just tell her, like, I don't want to hear this. If that's your opinion, it's not fine. But if that's your opinion, okay, but keep it to yourself. Yeah. But it's a hard bridge to gap. Because it needs to end, but it won't end until we change it. Mm-hmm. And those people, some people aren't changing their opinion, so it's always going to be here, always.
Although, I'm sorry, this is not meant to be offensive, but my grandfather died 2 years ago. It ended.
And that's fine.
Sorry, we have time for one more question.
Growing up in South Africa, where races were divided, and it was legally, in the books. But at the same time, my father was a third grade, but he always taught us that apartheid was illegal and ungodly. You cannot believe in God, who created all of us, and believe that somebody else is superior to the other. And he always raised us that as a third grade, graduate, that we are all equal in the eyes of God. Don't you ever believe you are, below the other person. It's learning what kids are taught. And for example, when we came to this country, I didn't mind what my kids, they did and who they did. For example, here's my grandson right here. And then my youngest daughter married a Filipino. So my kids are all mixed. Because that's how I was raised, that don't you ever feel you're inferior to any race. in the front of the eyes of God, we're all equal because we're created by one God.
All right, everyone. All right. Let's give it up again. Johnny Walker. Okay, listen, for those of you who don't know, I'm Lolita Hernandez. I teach with the Semester in Detroit program here as well as at the U of M main campus. I want to do a little advertising for our next panel series for Semester in Detroit. But before I do that, I want to thank all the incredible supporters for tonight. I want to shout out to my Director of Residential College, Dr. Angela Dillard, our Assistant Director, Dr. Jennifer Myers, Dr. Adele Anderson, who runs this joint here, Mike Gorman, with incredible technical support, Alexis, Joshua, all the amazing staff support that they've given us here to make this show. Can we just give them a little applause?